Without a doubt, I think this is the greatest state in the country for college football.
The biggest and one of the most industrious and spectacularly developing states in America. In recent years, Texas has come to be accepted practically as the universal gauge of the ultimate of everything.
The tallest buildings in Dallas and Fort Worth and Houston, and if you go out in West Texas on the ranches, into deer blinds, whatever, the conversation will be about the A&M Texas football game.
Good news for fans of college sports and tension. This rivalry, Texas versus A&M, will be renewed when the Longhorns move to the SEC.
The two big institutions in the state of Texas are University of Texas and Texas A&M.
Texas and Texas A&M is a blood feud, and in a blood feud, both sides going to land some blows.
There's been a lot of competition between A&M and the University of Texas, just not on a football field.
Got him looking right down the heart of the plate.
We didn't like them and they didn't like us. That's a piece that makes that game so special.
Even if you don't have a rooting interest, you're watching the game.
When they see what happens at Kyle Field that night in terms of this rivalry and what it means, they hadn't seen anything yet.
Now let's look in on the Aggies and the Longhorns as they review their ancient rivalry.
The A&M Texas rivalry is such that its importance hits at the entire fabric of Texas. You've got families that went to all Texas or Texas A&M. You've got families that have members that went to both schools. So right there, you have created a rivalry just in bragging rights on anything.
A big part of this rivalry is the proximity. It's not just the state's two flagship universities. It's that they're only separated by 100 country miles. It's such a difference in philosophy, and it's been that way almost from the beginning.
To understand what made the Texas A&M and Texas rivalry as culturally significant as it is today, we need to look back to the early days of both institutions.
Texas A&M was founded as a result of the Morrill Land Grant Act. Building begins in 1875. There are 2 buildings, 5 outhouses, and a barn. That's all there is. And then after everything was put in place, the school opens on October the 4th, 1876.
Down the road in Austin, the University of Texas opens its doors in September of 1883.
They come along 7 or 8 years after A&M is open. But very clearly and very quickly, it is pretty obvious that there's going to be some tension. And what it boils down to politically, frankly, is money. Because any money that Texas A&M is getting for education, the University of Texas would not get. 90 miles apart and a million miles separate in attitude and everything.
The origins of American football can be traced back to universities in the Northeast. And by the late 1890s, word of this new sport makes its way to College Station.
By 92, 93, a couple of students, having read articles in newspapers about this weird sport that they're playing up in New England at Harvard and Yale called football, that they'd like to try that at Texas A&M. So they form a team. The original team is called the A&M FBT. That's it, FBT, football team. There's no term for Aggies, there's no term for anything. So one of the constants, though, that will happen is they begin a series playing the University of Texas. There's a lot of angst and irritation because Texas wants to play at a neutral site. They don't want to play in College Station. The early games up till 1910 were in Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio. They took the money in, and A&M did not get a fair cut of the gate from the very get-go. Well, they wanted to up the program, so they found this coach named Charlie Moran. And all of a sudden, he begins to win. And I mean really win. In fact, he will beat the University of Texas 3 times in 1 year. Texas is getting really embarrassed by A&M beating them. So they attack Moran, and he's just out beating them and out coaching them. And all of a sudden, they just get mad and pick their ball up and go home and say, we aren't going to play you anymore. And they accuse Moran of the problem and all this other stuff.
With the Permanent University Fund, conference affiliation, and Charlie Moran as central issues in this latest political debate, Texas A&M and Texas reach an agreement. Membership in the Southwest Conference is solidified. Distribution of the Permanent University Fund is defined, and Charlie Moran returns to the professional baseball ranks. Over the next few decades in the Southwest Conference, the schools exchange wins, but the rivalry continues to brew off the field as well.
So the rivalry definitely picks up steam. It's the biggest game in the state. The students are playing pranks back and forth, and this goes on for decades. One myth is that the Aggies who kidnapped Bevo back in 1917 also barbecued him.
The moment of truth comes when the stakes are turned, because once turned, there's no turning back.
Actually, the University of Texas did that. Around 1920, they had decided that the steer was taking too much money in food and upkeep, decided to barbecue Bevo for their 1920 football banquet. They actually invited the Aggies and supposedly presented the skinned hide with the 13-0 brand on it to the Aggies. But today, nobody knows where it is.
In 1939, Homer Norton and the Aggies defeated Texas 20-0 en route to a Southwest Conference championship and a Sugar Bowl victory over Tulane. The Aggies would end the season as the consensus national champion of college football. This impressive streak continued with Southwest Conference championships in 1940 and 1941, but then the unthinkable happens. World War II breaks out, and the entire campus shifts gears.
The rivalry games will go on, but they are not at the same level.
During this post-World War II era, Texas A&M struggles to reach the same heights in its athletic programs. But things begin to change for the football program in 1984 with the arrival of a new head coach.
When I came here, I didn't understand how much the game meant to both institutions. In 1983, at the end of the game, they were chanting something. And I looked at Billy Pickard and I said, Billy, what are they saying? And he said, they're saying poor Aggies. I said, that's the last time we'll hear that. And it was.
Where we've had a great deal of success was under Jackie Sherrill and R.C. Slocum. They turned the tables on Texas from 1984 to 1999. The Aggies won 12, losing only 4 in those 16 games.
And that started the confidence not only with the players, but also with A&M. I'm talking about the students, the former students, and that completely flipped the switch.
And I don't know how many games between A&M and Texas have been played where the conference championship was on the line. But I can remember the scene. It was, cotton balls flying throughout the air in the stadium and electric, and you knew you were fixing to be involved in a special game.
I coached in the A&M Texas game more than anybody in history on either side. I coached 30 times. 16 of those 30 times I walked off on the winning side. And that's what rivalries are supposed to be. If it's like a totally one-sided deal for a long time, it's not really a rivalry. But rivalries, that's the way it is. It'll go 2 years this way and 1 year this way and back and forth, and that makes it fun. So in modern times, this has been a great rivalry. The favored team, the on paper best team doesn't always win this game. It's just things change on that day.
In 1999, The Aggies started the season with a 7-3 record. But on the night of November 18th, at 2:42 a.m., tragedy struck.
It is a 90-year tradition at Texas A&M, a bonfire preceding the Texas A&M University of Texas football game.
But tonight, Texas is in mourning. In College Station, a huge pile of logs set up for the traditional bonfire collapsed.
They are still picking an enormous pile of logs apart in the hope that maybe a student under there is still alive.
At about 4 to 5 a.m., my phone rings. And as soon as I saw what had happened with the bonfire collapse, I immediately climbed in my car, drove from San Antonio to College Station. I went over to the football complex. Those guys weren't there. Those guys went over to the collapse, to the bonfire. They literally helped move logs away from the stack to help in the rescue process.
Coach Slocum made a recommendation that the game be played in order to give the Aggie community an opportunity to stay together during this challenging time.
You know, this was the state's biggest rivalry, but for at least a year, it seemed like that rivalry was set aside.
The wind was blowing that day. We had the flags up around the edge of the stadium, and you could hear those flags blowing in the wind. We needed something to help us get over the tragedy. And that 20-16 win, and Brian Gamble down there on the field holding up that ball, did a lot to help the healing process that we were going through.
The early 2000s would mark another shift in the rivalry, as the Longhorns would win the next 6 games in the series.
Every opponent in a heavyweight fight, especially against his rival, is going to have at least 1 or 2 good rounds in him. The year Texas wins the national championship, they're at College Station that year. They go into the half, and the Aggies are up. And Mac Brown goes, they're playing better than us. And they believe, but we're a better team, so what are we going to do about it? They got after Vince Young that day. That's the game that cost Vince Young the Heisman Trophy. And they almost cost Texas a national title shot.
As the demand for college football television rights increased, the visibility and potential benefits raised the stakes considerably.
The modern era of the sport, especially when television got involved, is what really kind of made it a national phenomenon. The rivalry got a little bit tighter, and it became even bigger and more glamorous.
As the Southwest Conference gave way to the Big 12, revenue distribution became a major point of instability, leading to tensions among the member institutions.
There was that prevailing sentiment, and not just from Texas A&M, that the University of Texas really tried to run the Big 12. And in 2010, those rumblings started that, maybe some programs were looking elsewhere. A year later, it all surfaced again, and the University of Texas provided the perfect reason in the Longhorn Network.
Today, the Longhorns program just got $300 million richer.
University President Bill Powers announcing the deal has been reached with ESPN for a 24-hour Longhorn network.
This is unfolding, and then they come out with this TV network. I think that was the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. The playing field wasn't level. It wasn't worth it.
That year, Texas A&M would make its last trip to Austin and walk away with a win. In the summer of 2011, the Aggies would secure their future and make an announcement that would change the course of college athletics.
Howdy, Aggie Land. Welcome to the SEC.
There were a lot of bureaucrats who didn't want A&M and Texas to be in separate conferences for good reason.
So when Texas A&M left the Big 12 for the SEC, the Aggies at that time and their leadership said, hey, we'd love to continue playing the Longhorns. The Longhorns, for their part, they felt scorn that the Aggies had left. How dare the Aggies leave us as conference mates?
The feeling around that rivalry, there was always a palpable buzz. Everyone knew that Texas A&M was leaving for the SEC. A lot had been written about the Longhorn Network. Leading into the game, it was like, this might be the last time they ever play.
The Lone Star Showdown one more time. It's up. The Longhorns win it.
I thought A&M was making a huge mistake when they went to the SEC. As it turned out, it was one of the greatest moves in the history of Texas A&M.
The Southeastern Conference era for Texas A&M athletics would prove to be exciting and transformative.
I think A&M going to the Southeastern Conference was a huge step for Texas A&M, not just Texas A&M athletics, but for the visibility of Texas A&M as a whole. And all of a sudden, we seem to get a little more politically astute and play a little more hardball and representing our interests going into the SEC. We needed to take an active role for our own destiny, and that's what happened. Plain and simple.
And we just learned in the last few minutes that SEC chancellors and presidents have voted to approve Texas and Oklahoma as members of the SEC.
Texas and Oklahoma were just a decade late of seeing what happened with Texas A&M and even Missouri. And said, hey, we want to be a part of this. And they also saw the future of college sports as well and where it was headed with these super conferences. And it was either join up or maybe get left out.
On November 30th, 2024, the Lone Star Showdown returns to Kyle Field, a Southeastern Conference battle that will have college football playoff implications.
You know, Texas A&M is a place that has always been remarkable in its ability to focus on things and to rally around causes. And there is no cause bigger around here than beating the hell out of Texas. I mean, there'll be thousands of people outside the stadium that won't even go to the game, barbecuing and watching generator-powered TVs with families. This is just an unbelievable event. It's almost too much, but it is part and parcel of this football tradition that we've grown up with, and it's that way because of tradition, of what we feel about A&M and representing our school, as well as the T-SIPs and what they think about the University of Texas and supporting there. It's going to be really quite a day. This state matters in so many ways. And I think that the rivalry coming back reminds us how much it matters. Everybody succeeds when A&M succeeds and the University of Texas succeeds. It's a great rivalry, I think, for that reason. And hopefully when the game's over, we walk out the door and we think, we're going to kick your ass next year, but you're not too bad.